Out of the millions of stories that have ever been told, very few have become timeless classics. One of these classics is the 1976 Academy Award-winning film, Rocky. Almost everyone is familiar with this rags to riches story. A raw young man from a rundown part of Philadelphia, going nowhere as a boxer, is given a shot at the title by the heavyweight champion of the world and fights him to a standstill. But what almost no one knows is that there is another, much older version of the story of Rocky Balboa. How much older? We're talking about as old as it gets. The original version of Rocky is the very first story ever written down. It was discovered by a British archaeologist in the ruins of the Library of Ashurbanipal, the last great king of the Assyrian Empire. The clay tablets it was written on date back to 1300 BC, but the story they tell, later titled the Epic of Gilgamesh, is said to be hundreds of years older than that. The original Rocky was called Enkidu, and the similarities between him and the Italian stallion are remarkable. We all know Rocky at the beginning of the movie. He's a tough kid from the streets, works as muscle for a loan shark. He's been fighting in basements for $10 a night, but isn't getting anywhere. Enkidu is also scrappy, lives in the desert. Like Rocky, he too runs with animals. In his case, they have 4 legs instead of guns and cannolis. Then, in both stories, something happens to these roughnecks. They meet a girl. Rocky meets Adrian at the local pet shop. She sees something in him. She's not looking at a street fighter. She's looking at the man under that rough exterior. Enkidu meets a girl, Shamhat. She sees something in him. Beyond the wild animal, she sees a man. Then something amazing happens. After each man gets the girl, they both get a shot at the title. For Rocky, it's Apollo Creed. The best boxer in the world, in a gesture of bicentennial patriotism and charity, wants to give this nobody from Philadelphia the chance of a lifetime. Enkidu gets his opportunity when the king calls him out. Gilgamesh, the greatest warrior in the world, wants to fight this wild kid from the desert. Then comes the most unlikely similarity. Both brawlers fight the most powerful man in the world to a standstill. We all remember the epic battle in Rocky. Neither boxer can win. Both stand there bleeding after 15 rounds, looking at each other like something just changed. Thousands of years before, Enkidu fights Gilgamesh to a standstill. Neither can win. They both stand there exhausted, looking at each other like something just changed. 4,000 years apart, exact same beats. When the final bell rings, Rocky does not hear the decision. He has one word for one person. He calls her name into the roaring dark. Adrian. She comes to him through the crowd. He has fought the greatest fighter alive and proven something to himself that the streets never could have taught him. He is not an animal. He is a man. When the contest ends, Enkidu does not return to the desert. He does not go back to the watering hole in the wild, dark edges of the world. He walks into the city beside Shamhat. He has fought the greatest warrior alive and proven something to himself that the desert never could have taught him. He is not an animal. He is a man. In both stories, there is a wild boy going nowhere who connects with a woman and then finds himself going straight to the top. Same pattern, 4,000 years apart. How can that be? Now, one explanation for this uncanny connection could be that when Sylvester Stallone wrote Rocky, he just copied the structure of the Epic of Gilgamesh. But there is no record of Stallone saying this. He said the inspiration came from the Muhammad Ali versus Chuck Wepner fight. So how did it happen? How did 2 stories, separated by 4,000 years, written in completely different languages, in completely different cultures, about completely different people, end up containing the identical emotional pattern? 2 writers, 4,000 years apart, accidentally wrote the same story beat for beat. The better explanation is that this pattern isn't something Stallone invented. It's something he tapped into, something that was already there, something embedded so deep in our human nature that when you sit down to write a story about a man trying to win, you naturally write this pattern without thinking about it. And if it's true, if Stallone tapped into something that was already there, that means that the author of the Epic of Gilgamesh did the same thing. He too tapped into this knowledge of human nature and wrote about a pattern that was already there. And there's no denying the success of this loser plus mate equals winner pattern. After all, Rocky didn't just do kind of okay. It won the 1976 Academy Award for Best Picture and was the biggest box office blockbuster of that year. And here we are, 50 years later, and everyone knows it backwards and forwards. It's become part of our culture. But Rocky's staying power pales in comparison to the Epic of Gilgamesh, which has survived the rise and fall of several world empires. So what is it about this pattern that makes it stick so hard? Why does it survive? Why do people keep telling it and retelling it generation after generation? Could it be that this pattern is not merely entertainment? Is this pattern instead revealing a secret message, a code for how to manage our human nature for maximum success in life? Think about a crow. Crows are born. One day they see an eagle. They don't know what it is, but something tells them that it means that they should be in fear for their life. So they let out a particular caw that tells the other crows, danger. The crow doesn't understand language or tonal architecture. It doesn't think about it. The eagle threat triggers its nervous system to become an alarm bell for its fellow crows. Human beings are more sophisticated, but we too have hidden instincts to send out important messages to one another. Ours are 2 hours long. They involve popcorn. We call them movies. And the classic stories like Rocky and Enkidu beautifully illustrate the same life-reviving message. And you recognize it the same way a crow recognizes the eagle. You don't have to think about it. You just feel it. Because it's written into your human nature. That's why the movie did so well. It made young people sit up straight, made them punch the air as they headed out of the dark theater back into the light. Their bodies had heard the message even if their brain didn't. You don't need to be a loser. Show your strength, find love, connect, win. The same message that writer after writer has been revealing for thousands of years. And it refuses to die because your human nature won't let it. Because when every generation hears it, it rings true. And when we write down this message, it is called literature, the Western canon. And when we film it with actors, it's called Academy Award-winning films. Every great story, no matter the century, follows the same structure. The right emotional notes in the correct rhythm and sequence that revitalizes your human nature. Because we really are all the same. We all have the same 3 parts: a mind, a selfish taking drive, a loving giving drive. And our stories help us to manage them for maximum success in life. Stallone called out, and you heard him, and were uplifted. Because we're all wired the same way. That's why great stories don't just entertain you. They light up those 3 interior parts of your nature in a specific sequence that reveals how to act, how to connect, how to win. Classic stories teach you how your life actually works. Quiz and description for more. See you next week. Michael.